According to Linktree's 2022 Creator Report, there were an estimated 207 million creators worldwide in 2022. So that means more now, probably.
Sheesh.
It's a lot.
That's hella.
So today we are talking about, is content creation worth it?
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Net with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our takes on whether we think something is net positive or net negative.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with over 17 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, a personal finance expert and an accredited financial counselor. We're best friends who talk about money
And everything else.
Content creation. Is it worth it?
First up, running the numbers on content creation. In the same Linktree report we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, they showed that the majority of creators, 139 million, fell into the range of having between 1,000 and 10,000 followers.
All right.
So yeah, well over half are in that kind of smaller end.
Yeah, smaller end. Now, when it comes to making money, Linktree says that around 3 in 5 beginner creators have not monetized yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right, yeah. For content creators who are making money, a survey from Influencer Marketing Hub in 2023 shows that 69% of content creators say brand deals are their most lucrative revenue source.
And in that same survey, 48% of creators say that they've earned $15,000 or less annually.
Yeah, that tracks.
All
That
right.
tracks. But we all know there's more to life than numbers. So let's talk about it.
Let's talk
Is
about
content
it.
creation worth it? Let's go, Lissa.
Well, let's first give context on what we do, because obviously this podcast, we're content creators,
Right.
but how else do you create content?
Right now, this is my primary source of content for my personal brand, I guess. I do it on behalf of businesses or my main business right now. But historically, it's been a tool for me. First, I was promoting a kind of sub-brand of mine, an event series that I made called Morning Sunshine. So I was creating a lot of content around like positivity, purpose, goal setting. And then when I started my own business, my consulting business, Liz Marie Strategy, content creation was a really huge part of my marketing strategy. And so I was big on social and then kind of found my niche with YouTube and like articles, blog content, SEO driven content. And that was really the bulk of my marketing.
Got it.
Over time, yeah.
So content creation primarily for you has been a tool to market other things, other
Yes.
business. Okay.
So this is actually my first time creating content for the sake of it.
creating
I'm not
content.
doing this podcast to market another business or
Right.
service. It is really just, I enjoy it. It's content I want to create and put out there.
Yeah.
And so this is a little bit new for me. It's always been a means to an end.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a good example because content creation can run the gamut of, promoting a brand, a product, a service, but it can also be for the sake of entertaining, educating, informing, what have you. There's so many different types of content out there
For sure.
that can simply exist to entertain.
So tell me about your history because yours goes way, way back.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you where I'm at today. Today, I create content under my brand, Wealth for Women of Color. It's sort of my personal brand as well because I'm the face of it.
Yep.
I'm the only creator attached to this brand. I create content about personal finance to help more women of color learn how to build wealth and make it more accessible to them. And so I started that journey with Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started posting these short little videos and they started getting traction to where I built up an audience pretty quickly, like within a year, like 20,000 followers, which I think on TikTok can happen pretty quickly if you get a couple of viral videos. And then since then, I have started to focus more on my long form content on YouTube. other contexts is I used to work at YouTube for a very long time, and I've always loved YouTube. I've always loved the idea of long form content. I had other channels I tried in the past, but this one I started posting consistently about 8 months ago, and I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers, which is great. It doesn't sound like a lot, but like I'm monetizing,
Yeah, sure.
And it's fun, and I enjoy doing it, especially for finance. In my opinion, like the longer form content allows me to go deeper into a topic, because I don't think I can teach investing in like a 1-minute video, you know?
Right.
Like,
and most of your content right now is like educational and informative.
yeah, so I post educational and informative content. I try to throw in a little bit of entertainment in there, here and there, but primarily to help to educate.
Yeah.
So that's what I currently do.
Okay.
What I've done in the past, I've had such a long content creation journey, because
you are an entertainer at heart.
Yeah, I feel like I never really called myself a creator or anything like that until more recently, but I guess I always have been. Yeah, I like back in the day. This was in like middle school. So I was in middle school in like the late 90s, right? Like 2000, year 2000. And I was making websites to like represent me and my friends. So we'd have our pictures, our profiles, like little tidbits about us. Like I would create websites like that. And then after that, I would blog. There were so many different blogging sites. Zanga was one of them. I used to blog about my dreams on there. That was a very long time ago. And so all of these were like for fun, right? I wasn't making money on any of this. And then, so I've had a lot of little things like that. Fast forward a little bit. When I started working at YouTube, this was around 2011, I also thought like, hey, why not make a channel? Like, I love making videos. So I started creating entertaining content. The problem was I didn't really have any means of like making it cohesive.
There wasn't like a strategy.
There was no strategy behind it. It was just like, some examples of videos that I've made over the years are different types of touchdown dances that you do in the end zone, and did a whole thing of that. And it's like, these were things that would have
killed on TikTok if TikTok existed then.
So this was back in the day. And then it'll be like, I wish I could sing, but I can't. So it'd be a video of me having a song playing, and then hit pause on the song, and then it's me continuing the song singing, and I can't sing. These are all
you're ahead of your time.
Ahead of my time. So I had a lot of things like that. Two other things I really enjoyed, like pieces of content that I made. One, there was this video I made called Fresh Prince Jeopardy. And so what it was like, I created this set that was like the Jeopardy show, where, you know, there's answers and you answer with a question, and all of the clues related to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And like, it was a whole thing, because I had to get my friends to be a part of it, to help film it, and I had to write all of the clues and then had to edit it. But it was great. Like, I loved the outcome. I still have the video. I'm actually not sure if it's public right now. And then I made this other game show called Name That 90s R&B Tune, which is like, there's a show back in the day called Name That Tune, where you're like, I could name that song in 2 seconds, and then they'll play 2 seconds of it, and then they'll create it. Anyway, all that to say, like, I've just always been a creator. I've always had these ideas,
it's just been something as long as I've known you. And I think you even have, like, back to middle school, like Lissa Lime, like those days. You've always, it's just something you enjoy doing, which I think is really interesting, like doing it for the love, because the process is fun, versus doing it for a specific business outcome. And you can also have both, right? It can serve both purposes.
But I never thought back in those days that it was something I could actually make money off of. That's why I was never thinking.
And I don't know if it was then in the way you can now.
Yeah.
I think you probably see or hear stories of people who naturally gravitated to those things, and then they go into film, right? Or they go in, you know.
Well, that's why I always wanted to work in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I did not know what it meant to work in the entertainment industry, but I knew that I got to move to Los Angeles, got to go to college in LA. I studied communications, mass media in college, and I got my master's in entertainment management because I was like, oh, I want to work in TV and film.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. Like, am I going to be behind a camera? Am I going to be a producer, a director? I didn't even know what those words meant, to be honest.
For sure.
I just knew I wanted
Most
to be.
people don't,
Yeah.
I think.
I just wanted to be in that world.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up happening that way. I ended up twisting and turning and doing other things in my career. But then I've ended up right back here where now I'm creating content.
Exactly. And now you have more of a lens. I mean, I feel like we talk about this stuff all the time. And even just since we both started our journey as creators, you've learned so much. And you already knew so much to begin with. I think just having worked at YouTube and getting that exposure, that kind of like insider lens.
And I'm no different from most people. Actually, I still think my videos are cringe. I was going to say all my first videos ever cringe. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it goes.
It's just natural. I'm going to leave them up. They're there. It is what it is. But yeah, that's kind of the journey. And then it wasn't until recently that I realized not only can I use content as a marketing tool for my business, because I also do financial coaching, but it can be a part of the business. It actually is my where I make the most money in my business is through
so talk about that, because that was something I honestly never really realized or was unaware of until this started happening for you.
Yeah. My first brand deal. So a brand deal essentially, for those who don't know, is when other brands want you, a creator, to help promote their brand. And there are different types of deals that can happen, but like in more recent years, it's been they'll pay you to create a video where you mention them or tag them, and they'll pay you a flat fee. The first brand deal I got offered when I started getting like a couple thousand followers on TikTok was this deal for like a 20-second video for $300. That is a very low amount relative, just so you guys know. But I had never gotten a brand deal offered to me before. So I was like, the second I take this, sign it, do a video, I could say I am a paid influencer.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I said yes to it. Only, like there were other terms. I think the terms of that deal were that I had to keep it up for like 3 months or something like that, because that kind of determines how much you actually get paid, is like who has the rights to it, where is it going to be posted, how long does it have to stay up, what do you have to say in it. There's so many different things like that. And so that was my very, very first paid brand deal that I can remember. And it was a couple years ago.
Okay. And how has that evolved? Like, is that a big part of your business now?
I would say it's big in terms of I've had a couple of big deals that have contributed to my business the last 2 years. So like 5-figure range, over 20,000.
Yeah.
For like a day's work.
Oh yeah.
Which is great. But the problem is that's like once a year. Like I haven't gotten to the point where I'm getting those regularly.
Right.
I actually don't have brand deals like every month. Some creators do. I think for me, it kind of slowed down because I've taken these pauses from posting content on, and we'll talk about that why.
Yeah.
But like I've taken pauses on like TikTok and Instagram. I'm focusing a lot on YouTube right now. I'm going to start posting more short form, but getting to this consistent habit of posting on every platform has been a struggle for me. Yeah. So I think kind of aligned with how often I'm posting is how frequently I get brand deals.
Makes sense, honestly.
But I will say I still get them from time to time. They're more in like the 1,000 range now. I rarely will take anything less than 1,000.
Yeah. And
this is for like a combined following of like, I don't know, 30,000. Yeah. Which is higher than that. What was that stat we said earlier where most influencers are micro influencers between 1,000 and 10,000. So I have more followers than that. But to be honest, my followers, especially on TikTok, are like a vanity metric. Those are not the people who are actually watching my videos.
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if we want to get into it, that's kind of one of the challenges in navigating this is you can build up a following, but does it really translate to anything? Like, or, in terms of like organic, selling or whatever that may mean. And you're investing so much in getting there. and you may be building the wrong audience, right?
Something I will say, I mentioned that I grew an audience pretty quickly, like over a year. To be honest, though, I wasn't an overnight success. I think what you see a lot, especially on TikTok, is like one video will go super viral and you'll go from like 1,000 followers to 100,000. I actually think that that's worse than having a steady growth because you're getting a whole new funnel of people who liked you for that one video. So unless you can create the kind of appeal that same video has over and over and over again, those people are going to not care and not stick with you.
You're like typecast in that specific type of content.
Whereas I feel like I rarely had I haven't even had any super viral videos. I've had videos do well, and over time, like every day I get new followers. It's not, I've never wake up and all of a sudden I've doubled my following.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just kind of steady
Sometimes
growth.
I feel like we all wish for that, but it's kind of...
Yeah, maybe not as meaningful or as sustainable long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's dive into these costs.
Oh yeah, the costs of content creation. Time.
Time. That's the biggest one in my opinion. Time and the energy. I mean, creativity is a resource.
Yeah.
It is a finite resource. And it takes a lot. For people who don't create content, I think a lot of people who don't create content are like, oh, you're just posting, right? Like it's easy. Talk to me a little bit about everything that goes into it.
Well, I do think there are everyday people who post content because they catch something funny happening on the street or something, right? And they'll post it and it'll go viral and they might get some followers, get a lot of comments, engagement. Whether or not they can monetize that clip or their account is another thing. So there's that. There's that level of, you don't even need a setup. You just kind of capture things as they happen. Use your phone. Most people have a phone. I think when you get into more of the consistent content creation, then you start to think about, what tools do I need? Software for like tracking everything, editing software, but then also like, do you need a better camera, a better microphone, lighting, actual equipment? And then for like more long form, typically you see it more polished where you have like
we in the studio.
Yeah, we're in the studio, actual cameras, versus just your phone, even though phones do really, really
great video
these days. So I think there's a lot of ways you can do it, but depending on how you choose to do your setup, it can take a lot of like time and energy, and then also the equipment.
Yeah.
Because I'll have to set up like my lighting anytime I film. I kind of keep it all ready to go. I just have to place it, but it still takes effort.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I'm not just like all of a sudden I come up with an idea and I start talking, because I create long form on YouTube, so I want it to be a little more polished and more prepared. Right.
So for me, I'm no longer creating YouTube, but my channel is still active. I'm monetized, and I don't think I've posted a video in like 2 or 3 years. But it's like a little steady stream. But I was very seriously engaged in it for a while, and it took me a lot of time to figure out my workflow. I got it down to a very well-oiled machine and I outsourced different parts of it, but I'm not a script person, but I would outline. So first, brainstorm topics, research, are these aligned from like a keyword standpoint? Are people searching for these? Do people want these topics? Brainstorm it, outline the episode or whatever the video is going to be. And then it would be like, okay, plan a shoot day. It's a big production. At the time, I didn't have a consistent space in my apartment, so get it all set up. I'm going to get my makeup, I had to do the whole thing. I was just shooting on my phone, but I had lights and a backdrop and stuff. And then upload the files. These files are huge.
Yeah, take forever.
Transport this media. I had a video editor, so I had everything organized a certain way. She would edit. I have to review, give feedback, add everything in. I had someone else doing my thumbnails and my descriptions. Adding SEO content, I would take a transcript of every video and turn it into a blog. So I had that outsourced. Then you're posting, you have to add like end screens, all the little things, and engaging, sharing on other socials. It is a lot. These are a lot of steps, way, way beyond just filming.
Yeah, because the idea is one thing, creating the content is another, and then you're actually marketing your own content, which is all the whole optimizations you were talking about. What do you? This is more so for long form, like on YouTube, for example.
Yeah.
You have to think of the thumbnail and title and what you're going to put in the description.
Yeah.
And
how are people going to find this? If you're just doing it for your pleasure because you enjoy it, maybe that doesn't matter so much.
Yeah.
But if the whole point is for the content to be found or for the content to be found so that your business is then found, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you're not putting energy into those things.
Well, I guess let's talk about the difference. We alluded to earlier, you alluded to some people do it for fun.
Yeah.
Purely as a hobby.
Sure.
So for those people, do you think there's a setup, or is it more like organic, or is it vary?
I think it totally varies. Like for you, right? When you did the Jeopardy, you put a lot of energy and effort and planning into that for your enjoyment.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say maybe you didn't hope it would blow up. So I think there's people that like, this is what I like to do. And then sometimes those people, just for the love of it, end up finding an audience and getting popular, and then maybe over time they get more strategic.
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of common evolution.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, because the reason I'm thinking of that is because people do it for different reasons, and it's okay. It doesn't matter what your reason is. Is it for fun, or is it because you want to make money? I think there's somewhere in the middle where if you want to do it for money, you have to think about what can you sustain doing for long term that you'll still enjoy, still feel passionate about. Because if you do it purely for like a supposed cash grab, or like you think you're just going to make money, you don't enjoy it at all. It is like a job. It's like, how much time are you going to put into it before you burn out? And
it's hard.
Yeah.
People may not understand that. It's hard work to do all of this stuff. It is time consuming. It takes a lot of creative energy. Some of it is very tedious. You have to be consistent. And that might be the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is doing it consistently, like, week in and week out, because that's such a huge factor in your success ultimately.
I mean, consistency is probably the biggest reason that I hadn't built an audience earlier in life. I would like post for like a couple months, and then I wouldn't say I got burnt out, but I just didn't have a strategy, didn't have a plan. And then I'd stop and not post for like a year, and then I'd try to come back to it. And I think now, when I actually grew my TikTok, I was like, no, I'm posting every day for 3-4 months. And then I did that. And then I kind of scaled back to like, okay, a couple times a week. And my growth kind of aligned with how consistent I was being, which kind of sucks because that means you kind of have to always be on.
Right. I think that's one of the other costs, and you see that, and you see burnout a lot because it's like you got to keep feeding the machine, right? Which is why and I know you do too, gravitate to more evergreen sources. So, like an Instagram, a TikTok. On TikTok, there's a little bit more, I think, where they're serving you not immediate, most recent, fresh content. But the expectation is to constantly be creating more all the time. Whereas something that's more search-based, like YouTube or blogs, where you can get picked up by Google and other search engines, that's something you create it once, and it could blow up in 10 years, but it always lives there.
Yeah.
And so it builds momentum. It's kind of like compound interest, right? It grows and grows on itself. And that I found to be much more sustainable for me. Like I said, I'm still making money. I haven't posted a video in
2 years.
2 or 3 years. And part of me is like, wow, if I had continued, but my business strategy changed. But that's very different than I constantly have to post forever and ever.
Which is what I feel probably Instagram is the one that I've struggled with the most, because before I felt I was spending a lot of time creating posts, reels and carousels and posts. And then once it's up and it has its initial go, I found that like none of those posts were ever getting picked up again or looked at. They're on my feed, so it looks nice on my profile, but other than that, they're not. Whereas like on YouTube, for example, like I posted a video sometime like 6 months ago about emergency funds, and it did okay, and then kind of went silent. And then I created a video later on where I alluded to that video, pointed to it, put a card on the screen for it, and then immediately it went up. But then that wasn't it. It started just getting more traction altogether.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, the way the search and discovery on YouTube works is amazing, which is why it's been around for so long.
Why it's YouTube,
It's why it's YouTube, and why it's the second largest search engine in the world after Google. Both of who are owned by the same company. Yeah, they're brothers. So yeah, I do gravitate towards evergreen content. All that to say, like, not all my content is evergreen.
Yeah.
There's a strategy behind posting evergreen stuff versus trending stuff, right? Because if something is trending, it's a topic people are currently talking about, searching for, you're more likely to get traction on it now.
Sure.
But there's the difficulty of keeping up with trends is that you have to constantly create and immediately.
Right. And I think in terms of building like a long-term sustainable audience, that might be more challenging if you're just like hopping on trends, because they may not be aligned with your other content or who you're trying to reach at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that can be a challenge in general if you have a, strategic targeted approach to your content, is finding the right audience and having them find you.
Yeah.
And figuring out what to post. And you'll see that sometimes where you maybe have some success, but it's actually like not aligned with where you want to be.
Yeah.
And how do you make that shift? I feel like you experienced that on TikTok at a certain point.
Yeah, basically. I feel like, well, TikTok has just always been a struggle for me. It's like, it's this weird place where like there are posts that get picked up and that will stay relevant throughout time, but also you can't control it.
Yeah.
So there are many times where I post something and it feels like, after that initial go, it's just like
in the void.
It's in the void. It doesn't exist anymore. I think what you see on TikTok a lot is people will repost it again later. That's why it has like the watermarks and it's like worse quality because it's like a re-upload of a re-upload of a re-upload. And then at that point, it's just like, oh my God, there's too much on here to sift through. Like,
sure.
So I kind of struggle with that too as a creator. Is I know that there's a game to be played when you are consistent and posting a lot, and like quantity almost as important as quality. Then I've scaled back because I'm like, I think I'd rather create more quality.
That's like an ongoing battle. I mean, I think there's probably a point of diminishing returns in terms of quality, but I mean, it seems like fairly strong correlation of volume and growth. Yeah. Over time, if you're consistent. But it's tough. I've had that too of, using different like schedulers for Instagram or something where you can repost old posts. And that was like a mental block for me. I'm like, I did this already. Yeah. But the fact is, who cares? No one saw it.
And no one's going to remember and
no
say,
one's going to remember.
Oh, Liz already posted this. And if they did, they'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about this.
Or who cares what they think?
Who cares?
Let's talk about the mental and emotional cost, because this is a huge thing. It's a journey, right? Going through your own head.
Yeah.
Before you create, after you've put something out there.
Oh, the mental cost. I used to care more about like, all right, I hope this gets likes and views in the first couple hours. I'm moving a little bit away from that and like letting it do its thing before I read into the analytics and then I'll take the analytics for like, all right, why did this perform well? Because that was another reason why I love YouTube. It has so much more in-depth analytics than the other platforms. But before, I used to stress out about like, oh my God, no one watched this, or like someone hit the dislike button and it's gonna like ruin, but as a creator, you have to kind of push those emotions to the side and get very practical with it, and just take whatever feedback you get or whatever engagement you get or don't get, or whatever your analytics say, and use that as a tool to tweak your strategy for the future, to redo that video but change the intro, or to not do that video because clearly no one cares about that topic, right? Or whatever. Like, you have to like test things and experiment and be okay with that. But that's not to diminish like the reality of like the toll, the mental and emotional toll, that it's like you put so much effort into this thing and no one's seeing it because the algorithm didn't help you out. Like, it's tough.
It's tough. So I think for me, I was able to set some of that aside on YouTube because I wasn't like a big YouTube person. I knew that I knew very little about it. And so my approach from the very beginning was like, fuck it, it's good enough. Which is so different from my approach on Instagram.
Great. Yeah.
It was very healthy for me. Now, there's certain things where like I would get comments like, oh, this little detail. And in my head, I'm like, fuck it, I put something out there. Like, do you not understand?
See, everyone needs to have that mentality.
But I think that's only because I knew this was not my realm. Like, even just watching YouTube, I do to some extent, but I didn't participate in it. So I didn't have enough information to be a perfectionist.
Well, that reminds me, and that's a great point to make. Because there's a lot of people, and I even do this, like who talk about best practices, like do this with your thumbnail and title, make sure your intro hooks people, and those are all things that do work. They stood the test of time. I went to a conference last year, and there was a YouTube creator who did a talk about how he doesn't do anything by the book.
Okay.
He's like, I don't do a quick, snappy intro. I just kind of ease into it. He's like, I don't do lots of edits where it makes like jump cuts. He's like, I just talk and people enjoy it. And then he's like, I don't do flashy thumbnails. I do this like janky looking font and just write what the video's about. And turns out his audience, he's in his probably 50s or 60s. He creates personal finance content about like retirement and Social Security. His audience skews older. And that older audience, they don't care about the other, those various things.
And I also think on YouTube specifically, there is a growing maybe backlash, or there are people who appreciate the opposite because now they're used to all of those best practices.
So they're like, you can slow down the way you talk. It doesn't have to be like, hi, my name is Lissa, and blah, 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 and I'm going to talk about 10 things. All right, number 1. It doesn't have to be like that.
It's so hard, though, because I think there's a mindset sometimes for creators of like, if I'm creating good content, people will find it. And that's just factually not true.
It's not.
But then there are examples where if you're creating valuable content, and good not necessarily meaning, flashy, good meaning worthwhile, some people will find that and you'll find your audience. I'm curious if you have thoughts on like what that difference is. Is it the consistency? Is it a little bit of like luck and just kind of happening to key in on something people want or need?
Yeah, I think it's all those elements. At the end of the day, watch time is very important. It tells this algorithm, this robot, this machine that whatever is in this piece of content, it was interesting enough that someone stayed through the whole video or through a lot of the video. And if on average, everyone that's coming to a video is watching it all the way through, there's something good about it. And the problem with when you're doing your own style and not, doing it according to best practice, it just might take a while to find those people. But once those people are found and this machine starts to know like, oh, it seems like this this piece of content is being watched by women all the way through. Let's serve it to more women and see if they keep watching it all the way through. And then so it does feed on itself. But it's that initial, like getting that initial,
right,
like, few views or whatever is what will determine almost the fate of a piece of content.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah. So, but I do think it's a lot of factors, right? If someone stumbles across something a year later and then shares it with a friend, like you said, you have a lot of evergreen content. Liz's videos, teach about branding and like brand strategy. And if I'm creating a brand today in 2024, your videos from 2021 are still relevant.
Right.
And if it's relevant to me, I'll share it with another creator friend who it might be relevant for. There you go. It's being shared. And so it can take time, but there's always that possibility. Like you've already created the thing. So
yeah. Which that's another element is like repurposing content. Not in the sense of reposting, but like you create it for one thing. How are you going to maximize the value of that? And that can be a burden too, right? So I mentioned like I would create a video and from that video, I would get some social content and a blog post. And actually just, to put people on game, my blog on my website drove way more traffic and actually way more sales than YouTube ever did. So don't sleep on blogs, especially if it's educational content. But I remember falling into that of like, you and I just discussed this the other day. Should we put stuff on TikTok?
Yeah.
We're creating content for Instagram. It's similar. It's maybe just like that last little percentage of extra effort. Should you or do you focus? And I think people fall into that and feel like they have to be everywhere because they already have the content, but then that gets overwhelming. It's a challenge.
Yeah. I think in the past, like years ago, I would try to do too many platforms at once. And it wasn't until I really just focused on one that I've built my first audience, a meaningful audience where I could actually monetize, get brand deals, and create a company out of it. So I don't think that's the right route for everyone, but for me, having that focus actually helped.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And every platform is different. So if you're working through many of them at the same time, it might be harder or take a lot more energy to learn what's going to work on each one.
I have some interesting thoughts on what are the legal costs of content creation?
Oh, okay. I have a very specific example.
Yeah.
So just in terms of like copyright, so there's people out there that are grabbing a video, grabbing a meme, grabbing a photo, reposting, sharing someone else's video or whatever on Instagram. All of that's technically illegal.
Yeah.
Like highly illegal. And there's kind of a, don't ask, don't tell policy that creates a lot of bad habits. We both had copyright classes at UCLA, so we learned a lot of this. I had a PDF guide, a brand archetypes guide on my website that it was like 20 pages, like a lot of detail. And one thumbnail that I had grabbed was of Malala Yousafzai. I couldn't find a royalty-free photo of her, right? Like this is not a person there's going to be on Unsplash.
Yeah.
So I like grabbed one off of Google. Somehow it got scraped and found even in a PDF, which are not indexed.
Yeah.
And I got like a cease and desist. Went through this whole process, and I think I ended up like settling and paying like $600.
Oh my gosh.
For a tiny thumbnail in an irrelevant document.
Yeah.
And it could have been worse, right? And so those are things I think the average person isn't thinking about. YouTube, I think it has like a friendly approach of they'll remove your music, right? I've had that happen on like one video, I think, versus taking real action.
Yeah.
It might be only a matter of time. I don't know. Do you think it's like, it's too far gone, or do you think the regulation of it is going to increase?
So I think it depends on the platform. So if you think about like Instagram, where if someone posts like a funny meme, or if someone creates a meme out of an image of like, I don't know, someone getting dunked on in a basketball game, and they use that same image in the meme, technically the people creating that meme don't own that image, but having created this new piece of content with it, it's probably arguable. Like they can argue that there's enough differentiation
Yeah.
that they've created on it to create this new piece of content. That's not to say that the owner of the image can come after each of those accounts, but will they? That takes a lot of legal
Right.
power and probably for little return, right?
Right.
They'll probably just serve like a cease and desist, and it's
Yeah.
just a lot of work. Where, you know, allowing it to happen might actually help the owner
Yeah.
of the image
Exposure. Yeah.
right? So there's that where, yeah, like you said, legally it's probably not okay, but if something's going to actually happen, who knows? On YouTube with music specifically, I think for me personally, I'm lucky that my first job out of grad school was in music licensing. So I kind of understand how it works to use music or not use music. And YouTube being such a big player in the game of video, they have now, like, yeah, they have a copyright strike system that if you do something wrong on it, you know, they'll give you warnings, they'll make you take down the video or not allow you to use the music. They also now have a built-in system whereby you can license music directly through the platform. It's not like a full like you can't license any Drake songs or anything like that, right? It's not like, but I think there'll be more of that because otherwise it'd be a huge miss for, you know, the major record labels and publishing houses. But that's why it's such a big deal for like TikTok lives on music being available.
It's honestly fascinating that even exists, right? That you went from YouTube, you can't use my music in this.
So now you can use any music you want on a video. Yeah.
And it's encouraged and it's smart from a marketing perspective for these artists.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're being compensated.
Yeah.
But
it is tricky though for an artist because what if you don't want your song associated with, I don't know, someone of a different like political background or something, right?
You can be like co-opted.
No control over it as a creator, as an artist, but you might be making money off of it. So it's like this weird evolution of how both content and the music industry has evolved over time. But yeah, the everyday person who's creating content probably won't understand a lot about copyright of images, copyright of music. It's like a interesting
and you can get caught up without even realizing it.
So there are legal costs. Luckily for most of these platforms, there'll be warnings and they'll give you, there's guidance, there's like educational articles where you can learn. But for the most part, like try not to use stuff that's not yours.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, quick story time.
What?
Story time.
This is not about content creation, but it's about music licensing. So back in the day when you had to illegally download music on LimeWire.
We all did that.
We all did that.
All millennials for sure.
One of my other best friends, this was when we were at UCLA. So my freshman year, I was 17. The internet at UCLA, like in the dorms, was like highly, highly monitored. So you could not download music there. You would get caught like immediately. So she used to come home with me on the weekend and go to my mom's house where we had trash internet at the time. And it would be like, 4 days to download this song. But we used to like, hook ourselves up. But one time she forgot to pause it. And so she came back to UCLA and a song downloaded and she got caught. And I don't know if she ended up having to pay, but they at least threatened with like 20 grand, like crazy fines for illegally downloading music.
That is wild.
It was the Wild Wild West back then.
See,
crazy times.
And it's stuff like that. Like, I would love to put more music in my content, but I want to make sure that my content won't ever get taken down and that it is evergreen. So, you got to
pick your spots, even though you might be missing out on opportunities. Yeah. It's tough.
One last thing. So for people who, because I get this a lot, I have a lot of friends who are like, I kind of want to create content, but they'll have an excuse of like, nah, someone else is already doing that, or there's too many content creators already out there, right? 200+ million in the world, or it's too hard. Like, what advice would you have for someone who's a creative and who could potentially benefit emotionally or financially from creating content?
Yeah. They're not me. I think you just, if this is what you want to do, put it out there. Yeah. Do it. Why not? What do you have to lose? You do it and no one watches. No one was watching when you weren't doing it.
No one would have known anyway. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
There are so many people in the world, so there's room for so many different perspectives, little niche-y subcultures. You never know what's going to resonate with someone. Your style, the way you speak, your point of view. It doesn't matter. A million people could do a video on the same topic, and they're all going to be different.
Right.
So I don't think that you should let any of that stop you. To me, that's just fear talking.
Have you ever watched a terrible show on Netflix or a movie? Right? They're not stopping creating content.
Oh, wait. Oh, my God.
What?
I've been getting story time number 2.
Story time. Stories time. You know what? I want a new segment for this show. I was going to tell you. We might as well do this on air.
Yeah.
Instead of a story time segment, a permission to go on a tangent.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I'll like permission
to go on a tangent.
Granted.
Okay. Oh, this is like low-key embarrassing. So I read a lot, right? Lots and lots of books on Kindle. And I alternate between like, you know, substance and like cheesy, mindless, like romance novels, right? So a couple weeks ago, I started getting Instagram ads like flooded for these like other apps. I'm assuming it's like self-published like romance novels, and some of them are wild, right? But then there's these other apps that turn them into shows, but they're all shorts. And girl, the ads of Instagram got me hooked on these stupid, cheesy shows. They're like, you know, 60 seconds at a time, each little episode.
Wait, are they AI created? Or
No.
So someone created it
like
from
real actors, terrible actors, real terrible actors, but like quality filming, quality sets. But the gating is wild. So there's this one stupid show that I've watched in ads, and then you download the app because you're already hooked. Yeah. And you start watching the episodes, and it's like, you know, 50 credits for each short. That's a chapter,
so
right?
You've been paying for...
I haven't paid.
Okay.
But the first few you can watch an ad, you know, to get the credits. So I've probably like between what was accessible on the profile and the credits seen like 15 episodes of this one 60-second episodes. But there's like 100 in the show. And the credits are crazy expensive.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I would pay for like a membership. I don't watch a lot of content. So if something grabs me, I'd be like, I'll pay $20 a month or whatever to watch this stuff. No, it worked out to like, on the one, I think it would be like $50 just to watch this one little show. I'm like, nah, I'm not. This is where I draw the line.
There is moral of the story, there is an audience for everything.
These are terrible, girl, terrible.
You might have to link them in the description to show people what it is you're obsessed with.
Terrible. And it still gets me. And then they keep showing me like a new, the marketing is masterful.
That's funny, yeah. I mean, you got something to create, as cheesy as it is, someone like Liz will watch.
I'll get sucked in.
That's hilarious, man. All right, 20 cents?
20 cents.
20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, each get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic of content creation, whether we think it's a net positive or a net negative. Where does 20 cents come from?
Well, you get the opinion of 2 dimes, y'all.
All right, Liz, you are up first. 60 seconds on the clock. For you, is content creation worth it?
Yes, that's why I'm here. But I'm gonna back this up by saying my view on it has shifted. So first, I used it as a tool for my business, and I do think that was worth it. It was a lot of work, and it was very stressful. It took a long time to find a system that worked for me. And I actually outsourced a lot, which we didn't dive into in too much detail. So it was actually a cost center, I think, technically. But I got business from it and got my brand out there. Now I'm doing it for the love of the game, and I get to sit here and shoot the shit with my best friend, and it is so fun. And, you know, who knows what will come of this, so it's absolutely worth it. Like, we're putting up money, we're spending to make this happen, and I love every minute of it.
All right.
Net positive.
Net positive for Liz. All right.
All right, Lissa.
For me, obviously I'm a content creator. That's how I introduce myself these days. For the most part, I create content, Wealth for Women of Color, Net Podcast. I have some other ideas coming on the way. So net positive for me. I will say one of the benefits that I didn't talk about in this episode was that I love not only sharing my thoughts and ideas, but over time, having been a content creator, I've learned to be better at it. Like I've gotten better at organizing thoughts in my mind to share it with others, because otherwise it would be a whole mess if I couldn't do that. So I feel like I've improved those skills of mine, which are important to me. So overall, it's been net positive.
Net positive. That's an easy one.
Very easy.
Easy, baby.
Easy. Well, remember, this is what we think right now at this moment in time. Not everyone has to create content, but if you want to, why not?
Let's go.
So what do you think? Is content creation worth it?
Hit us up. Let us know what you think. DM us on Instagram at netnetpodcast or email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And I'm at live_well_Lizzy on Instagram and TikTok.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice. Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own damn decisions.